week or so later, I was released from the hospital thinking, never again. I'm never going to get sick like that again. I'm never going to the hospital again. And wouldn't you know it, I got mononucleosis. And for 6 months, I was bedridden. I had no energy. I felt miserable. I missed most of grade 1. And again, at the end of grade 1, I said to myself, never again. This is not going to happen to me. And I got the chicken pox. Then I got the mumps. Then I got the measles. I wasn't even 7 years old yet. Why me? I kept saying. All my friends were playing out at night. I seemed to be bedridden and looking out the window, watching all my buddies in the neighborhood playing, and my siblings too. All I did usually was cry. I felt so bad. When I was 7 years old, in a random checkup, the doctor found that I had a hernia. Hernias need to be repaired. I had to go in for surgery for another week in the hospital. I came back out and couldn't play for another 2 to 3 months till I was cleared. I thought, now, finally, I'm going to feel better. No more time in the hospital, no more being sick. And being the strong 9-year-old that I was, and pretty cool in the neighborhood, I had one of those bikes, you know, the high handlebars, the long banana seat that you rode on. And like you've seen recently, and maybe you've seen these posters on social media, where the kid goes over the ramp over top of his buddies. That was me. When I was 9, oh yeah. I was living life. I was finally healthy. I'd been over a year without being in a hospital. I hadn't seen a doctor in a year. I was ready to show the world, watch me. And so we invited all of the parents out to watch because I'd set the neighborhood record. I'd cleared 4 of my buddies lined up on the ground going over that ramp. And I was going to show the parents, watch, I set the record in the neighborhood. Yeah, that didn't go so well. Flipped over the handlebars. The handlebars went into my side. I was tangled all up. And when they unwrapped me from the bike, it was another trip to the hospital and another surgery. It was another hernia. I spent another week in hospital and then spent another 2 months slowly recovering. So you'd think by the time I was 9, I'd spent enough time in the hospital for anybody, for a lifetime. And then the story changes. It wasn't my illness, and it wasn't my sickness that became the focus. It was that of my mom. I'm the 6th of 8 kids. My mom is 5'1", 5'2", 100 pounds soaking wet. She smoked through all 8 pregnancies. Started smoking when she was 14. Yeah, living the life. And I was called from my buddy Chris Egan's house. I had to come home quickly. There was something wrong with my mom. I just turned 10, and my mom had had a heart attack. And she was rushed to the hospital, where she was the 2nd person at University Hospital in the brand new cardiac ward to have double bypass surgery. Double bypass surgery in the 1970s didn't mean you were out in 5 days like it does now. It meant over 2 months in intensive care. 2 months where a 10-year-old boy isn't allowed to see his mom. And for 2 months, I didn't know if my mother was living or dying. Occasionally, we got to speak on the phone to her. Occasionally, I'd get updates from my dad and from my older siblings. But it totally changed my perspective on life when I didn't have my mom for over 2 months. And I said to myself, I remember saying to myself at 10 years old, I don't want any other little boy or girl to feel like I do right now. I don't want any little boy or girl to get sick like I've been, and I certainly don't want any of them to have their parents get sick the way my mother is right now. A year later, after beating this and coming out with a whole new lease on life, my mom got cancer. Now, you gotta remember, 5 foot nothing, 100 pounds nothing, 8 kids, already survived everything else life could throw at her. She headed right on into her cancer treatments and beat cancer. But the one thing she couldn't beat was COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, basically emphysema. It started to show itself when I was taking off in my athletic career. Because after 9 years old and that last accident on the bike, suddenly health was on my side, and I started to play every sport that there was out there. I was playing travel hockey, travel baseball, running track and field, playing football. I didn't stop. I was often 2 and 3 seasons overlapping at a time. But the challenge for my mom was, if it was warm and humid, she couldn't breathe. If it was cold, she couldn't breathe. If it was windy, she couldn't breathe. And so most of the times when I was playing my sports, it always depended on the weather or the temperature whether my mom could be at my events. I played quarterback in high school at CCH back in the day, and I distinctly remember my father coming early to our games right down the street, down here on Colburn Street. We played at Crothers Field in those days before the field at CCH was finished. And my dad would get there early and pull his old caravan up close to the field where my mom could watch the games. I then went on to play football at Western. And as I was playing my games at Western, again, she couldn't get up in the old JW Little Stadium. She couldn't get up the stairs to sit with all of the other parents. And so my dad would drive in, made arrangements with the maintenance building people to pull her van up into the end zone on the track. And what was really cool is he'd get there about an hour before game time, and we'd all be warming up, and the guys on the team would go, "Hey, Regs, your mom's here." Pretty cool, even the guys in Western's football team are telling you your mom's here. Because they all knew, what's going on? Like, why is there a van? And I would tell the story of my mother's health challenges, and then all of the parents would say hi and come down to visit and make my mom feel part of the organization, part of the team, and part of the families, part of the parents. And I remember 2 games in particular where my mother was able to watch me play. It was the perfect fall weather day at McMaster University. They had ramps back in those times to get up in that stadium where my mom was able to come with my dad pushing in her wheelchair and her oxygen tank beside her. And she sat in the stands, and I was pumped because I scored 2 touchdowns that day. I was feeling it. I was really happy. But the most memorable time that my mother had this, just it hit me in my heart, was when in 1989 we played in the Vanier Cup in Rogers Centre, the Sky Dome. We were playing University of Saskatchewan, and the beautiful part about that place, it's a domed stadium. There's no weather to deal with, no wind, no nothing. My father was able to drive the van into the stadium, get her up in an elevator, and she was able to sit with all of the other parents in the box seats that Western had organized for all the parents for the game and enjoy it. And we won. We beat the University of Saskatchewan, won the Vanier Cup, a national championship. It was my last game ever of football. And for those of you who've ever played football out there, it's not something you can play ever again. You don't play pickup football with the equipment on. Not like hockey. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done at the end of that game was to take my equipment off knowing I'm never going to play football ever again, something I loved. But what was really cool was that we got noticed down in the dressing room that the parents were all waiting up for us to bring the trophy to see them. And so being a last year player, I was a senior player on the team, they let the seniors take the trophy up the elevator, and then we all waited till all the guys were up, and we walked in together to where all the parents and families were waiting. And there were 100+ people gathered, screaming and cheering loudly for us. And there was my mom in her wheelchair, right at the very front of all of them. It hit me like a ton of bricks. There's my mom after a game with all the other parents. This is amazing. Totally made my entire university football career to end that way, to have her there to celebrate with us. It was powerful. My health experiences, my mom's health challenges have shaped who I am today. From all of that pain, the physical pain literally as a little boy, to the pain I felt for my mom and almost thinking I'm never going to have my mom when I was 10 years old, to the amazing feelings that I felt in that last football game I ever played as there she was as we brought the trophy in. They have shaped everything I am. They have made me passionate about helping people live their very best health so that little boys and girls don't have to watch their parents struggle, and so that moms and dads can be the very best parents that there ever were. Thank you very much.